Does your cat suddenly turn into a furry rocket at 3 a.m., bouncing off the walls and using your sleeping body as a launch pad? You wake up to the sound of galloping hooves, wondering if you adopted a tiny horse by mistake. Do you ever look at them drifting around the kitchen corners and think, are they doing this just to annoy me? Or did my cat simply break? Well, you are not alone. Today, we're going to dive deep into the furry minds of our feline overlords. We will reveal the absolute secret behind the legendary midnight Zoomies, and more importantly, exactly what you are doing to trigger them. Get ready, because the truth is funnier and wilder than you think. But before we expose their secrets, drop down in the comments and tell me, what is the name of the furry hooligan destroying your house at night? Before we judge our cats for acting like complete lunatics, we need to understand exactly what they are. Despite the cute collars and the fact that they sleep on silk pillows, cats are fierce, obligate carnivores. They are apex predators. In the wild, their entire existence revolves around a cycle of explosive energy and deep rest. A wild cat will stalk, sprint, and pounce to catch their prey, burning a massive amount of calories in a matter of seconds. To recover from these intense bursts of hunting, they must sleep up to 16 hours a day. They are solitary hunters, relying entirely on their own physical prowess to survive. Thousands of years of domestication have not erased this hardwired biological blueprint. We took a sleek, lethal assassin of the desert, brought them into our living rooms, and started feeding them from cans. But that wild predator DNA is still bubbling right beneath the surface of that soft, purring exterior, just waiting for the right moment to strike. Have you ever looked at your fluffy little couch potato and wondered how they suddenly transform into a parkour champion? Let's talk about the inner predator. Deep down, beneath that soft fur and those adorable toe beans, your cat is a fierce, wild hunter. Yes, even if their biggest daily achievement is successfully knocking a pen off your desk. In the wild, cats expend massive amounts of energy hunting their prey. They stalk, they pounce, they sprint, and they kill. But our indoor house panthers get their food delivered in a nice little bowl by their favourite two-legged servant. That means all that explosive hunting energy is just sitting there, building up like a pressure cooker. When the pressure gets too high, boom, you get the Zoomies. They aren't just running aimlessly, they are acting out an intense, highly choreographed imaginary hunt. That invisible thing they are chasing across the living room rug. In their mind, it's a gazelle, or at least a really fast mouse. By tearing through the house, they are satisfying a primal urge that has been hardwired into their DNA for thousands of years. So the next time your cat uses your face as a springboard at 2 in the morning, just remember, they are just keeping their lethal assassin skills sharp. And honestly, it's a good thing they are small. Otherwise, we would all be in serious trouble. Let us talk about the concept of the feline battery, because cats are basically the ultimate solar panels. But instead of the sun, they absorb pure, unadulterated laziness. Your average cat sleeps anywhere from 12 to 16 hours a day. Imagine sleeping that much and suddenly waking up. You would probably have a massive burst of energy too. When your fluffy overlord wakes up from their 14th nap of the day, curled in some strange, spine-bending sleeping position on your warm laptop keyboard, their internal battery is overcharged at 150%. They do not have a gym to go to, they do not have a marathon to run, and they cannot exactly take up knitting. Their only physical outlet is your long hallway. The Zoomies are quite literally a biological energy explosion. If they do not sprint from the kitchen to the bedroom, drifting around the corners like a furry sports car and defying gravity as they run sideways across the sofa, they might actually explode. It is a sudden, uncontrollable release of kinetic energy that has been storing up while they dreamed. They go from 0 to 60 in 1 second flat, proving that the laws of physics simply do not apply to felines. So the next time you see them spinning like a top, just think of them as a highly advanced, slightly malfunctioning wind-up toy that got cranked one too many times. Let's talk about one of the most hilarious and bizarre triggers for the Zoomies, the legendary post-poop victory lap. Yes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Your cat uses the litter box, and suddenly they emerge like they are fleeing a crime scene. They sprint out of the bathroom as if their tail is on fire, eyes wide, ears pinned back. But why on earth do they do this? Science actually has a fascinating explanation. There is a major nerve in their body called the vagus nerve. When a cat has a particularly, productive session in the litter box, it can stimulate this nerve. This stimulation causes a sudden drop in blood pressure and heart rate, followed by a sudden rush of adrenaline. It is literally a physiological high. They feel so incredible, so light and so euphoric that they just have to celebrate with a high-speed sprint across your freshly vacuumed rug. It is their version of crossing the finish line at the Olympics. Plus, in the wild, the smell of their business could attract larger predators. Running away from the scene of the crime is a survival instinct to put distance between themselves and any potential danger. So they aren't just being weird, they're experiencing a mix of pure bathroom euphoria and primal survival tactics. Now, let us get to the juicy part. What does this have to do with you? Well, my friend, you might actually be the main trigger for your cat's crazy behavior. Cats are incredibly observant creatures. They spend all day watching us, studying our habits, and figuring out our schedules. When you are gone at work for 8 hours, the house is boring. Nothing is happening. The cat sleeps. But the moment you turn that key in the door, the environment instantly changes. You bring in new smells, new sounds, and most importantly, energy. Your arrival is the most exciting thing that has happened all day. You are basically the human equivalent of a party cannon going off. As you walk around, take off your coat and start making dinner, your cat feeds off that kinetic energy. They see their favourite large, furless servant moving around, and they think, "Oh boy, the giant is active. It is time to hunt. It is time to run." You are unknowingly pressing the big red Zoomies button just by existing in their space. They are celebrating your return the only way they know how, by acting like an absolute lunatic and doing parkour off the kitchen cabinets. You are the catalyst for the chaos. Have you ever wondered why the Zoomies almost always happen at the most inconvenient times? Like 3 a.m., or right when you sit down with a hot cup of coffee at dawn? This is not a coincidence, and they are not doing it just to spite you, although it certainly feels like it. Cats are what scientists call crepuscular animals. Unlike humans who are diurnal, or owls who are nocturnal, cats are biologically programmed to be most active at dawn and dusk. In the wild, this is when their natural prey, like mice and birds, are out and about. The lighting during these twilight hours provides the perfect cover for a stealthy predator. So, when the sun starts to go down, or just before it comes up, your cat's internal alarm clock starts ringing loudly. "Wake up! It is hunting time!" their brain screams. Even if they have lived indoors their entire life, and the closest thing they have ever hunted is a laser pointer, that wild DNA is still calling the shots. They can't help it. Their bodies are flooded with hormones and energy right when you are trying to catch your deepest REM sleep. They are just answering the call of the wild from the comfort of your living room carpet. While the Zoomies are usually just a funny and completely normal part of being a cat, sometimes there is a little more going on beneath the surface. It is important to know when to laugh and when to pay closer attention. Sometimes sudden bursts of frantic running can be triggered by physical discomfort. If a cat has fleas, for example, they might suddenly feel a sharp bite and literally try to run away from the itch. It looks exactly like the Zoomies, but it's actually sheer panic. There is also a rare but real medical condition called feline hyperesthesia syndrome. Cats with this condition have highly sensitive skin, especially along their back and the base of their tail. The skin might ripple or twitch, and it causes them a very strange, uncomfortable sensation. When this happens, a cat might suddenly bite at their back, widen their eyes, and sprint away as if they are being chased by an invisible ghost. If your cat's Zoomies are accompanied by obsessive grooming, frantic skin rippling, or if they seem genuinely distressed rather than playful, it might be time to chat with your vet. But don't panic. 99% of the time, it's just pure, unadulterated feline silliness. Let's talk about fuel. Just like a sports car needs premium gas to hit top speeds, your cat's energy levels are heavily influenced by what you put in their food bowl. If your furry friend seems to have an unnatural amount of energy, you might want to check the ingredients in their kibble. Many commercial dry cat foods are packed with carbohydrates. But here is the secret. Cats are obligate carnivores. Their bodies are designed to run on high-quality animal protein, not carbs. When they eat a carbohydrate-heavy diet, it is essentially the feline equivalent of giving a toddler a massive bowl of sugary candy right before bedtime. They get a huge unnatural spike in their blood sugar, which translates into a manic burst of energy. They literally have a sugar rush. They don't know what to do with this sudden influx of jittery fuel, so they sprint down the hallway, knock over your favourite houseplant, and attack the curtains. If you notice the Zoomies consistently happening right after mealtime, especially if you free-feed dry food all day, you are basically operating a feline espresso bar. Adjusting their diet to include more wet food and protein might just save your sanity. Age plays a massive role in the frequency and intensity of the midnight crazies. If you have a kitten, well, my heart goes out to you. Kittens do not have Zoomies. They have a constant 24/7 state of hyperactive delirium that is only occasionally interrupted by sudden, dead-weight sleep. A kitten's world is entirely new, and their brains are rapidly developing. Every single shadow, speck of dust, or dangling shoelace is a matter of life and death that must be pounced on immediately. Their energy levels are off the charts. But as your cat grows into a dignified adult, usually around 2 to 3 years of age, the constant chaos begins to settle down. The Zoomies become less of an all-day event and more of a scheduled daily performance. And what about senior cats? Do the grandpas and grandmas of the cat world still get the Zoomies? Absolutely. It might just be a very short, slightly wobbly sprint from the couch to the kitchen, but that inner kitten never truly dies. Seeing an older cat suddenly get a burst of youthful energy and chase a toy for a solid 30 seconds is one of the most heartwarming things a cat parent can witness. It proves the fire is still there. There is a very common myth among cat owners that I want to completely bust right now. Many people watch their cat tear through the house, knocking over lamps and screaming at the walls, and they think, wow, my cat is just naturally insane. Or worse, my cat is doing this because they are mad at me. The truth is far less malicious and entirely our responsibility. Most of the time, the Zoomies are a direct result of play deprivation. We treat cats like low-maintenance houseplants. We feed them, clean their box, give them a pat on the head, and assume they are happy. But remember that inner predator we talked about? If you do not provide an outlet for that hunting instinct through interactive play, the cat has to create their own outlet. If you aren't waving a wand toy or throwing a mouse for them to chase, they are going to invent a game. And that game usually involves your ankles, your expensive curtains, or a marathon sprint at 4 a.m. They aren't crazy, and they aren't mad at you. They are just incredibly bored. Your cat is literally begging you for a job to do. Taking just 15 minutes a day to actively play with them can drastically reduce the destructive midnight parkour. Not all Zoomies are created equal, and a lot of that comes down to breed genetics. If you have a Bengal, an Abyssinian, or a Siamese, you probably know exactly what I mean. These highly intelligent, athletic breeds are basically the Ferraris of the cat world. They don't just get the Zoomies, they turn your entire home into an Olympic gymnastics arena. A Bengal won't just run down the hall. They will run on the walls, scale your bookshelves, and yell at you about it the entire time. Their need for physical and mental stimulation is astronomical compared to your average house cat. On the other end of the spectrum, we have breeds like the Ragdoll, the Persian, or the British Shorthair. These majestic fluffballs are the absolute masters of lounging. When a Persian gets the Zoomies, it might literally just consist of them rolling over very aggressively and swatting at the air twice before falling back asleep. It is hilarious to watch. They want to participate in the wild instincts, but the effort is just too much. So, depending on the genetic blueprint of your tiny tiger, you might be dealing with a Category 5 hurricane or a very mild, fluffy breeze. Have you ever been sitting quietly in the living room when your cat suddenly freezes? Their pupils dilate until their eyes are entirely black. Their ears pivot like radar dishes. They stare intently at a completely blank, empty wall. And then, without warning, they launch themselves at the ceiling, bouncing off the sofa and sprinting out of the room. It genuinely looks like they just saw a ghost. This terrifying little habit is actually a testament to their incredible superhuman senses. A cat's hearing is infinitely better than ours. They can hear high-frequency sounds that are completely imperceptible to the human ear. That ghost they are hunting, it is probably a tiny spider walking inside the drywall, a mouse scratching in the floorboards 2 rooms away, or even the subtle shift of the house settling. Their vision is also incredibly tuned to pick up the tiniest movements. They might see a microscopic speck of dust floating in a sunbeam and decide it is the ultimate enemy. They live in a sensory world that is incredibly loud, vibrant, and full of invisible targets. So they aren't fighting demons. They are just responding to a world we can't even perceive. If you have ever had the misfortune of having to give your cat a bath, you have undoubtedly witnessed the legendary post-bath Zoomies. The moment you release that soggy, angry little gremlin from the towel, they take off like a rocket. They slide across the hardwood floors, rubbing their face on every carpet, couch, and bed they can find. Why the frantic scrambling? There are a few reasons. First, pure relief. They have survived the evil water torture device, and they are expressing their sheer joy of freedom. Second, instinct. Being wet makes a cat feel heavy, sluggish, and vulnerable to predators. Running and rolling around is an instinctive way to dry their fur as quickly as possible so they can regain their agility. But the most important reason is scent. Cats communicate heavily through smell. When you bathe them in your lovely lavender pet shampoo, you have effectively erased their personal identity. They don't smell like themselves anymore. They smell like a walking flower bed. The frantic rubbing and zooming is their desperate attempt to cover themselves in the familiar sense of their territory and re-establish their feline identity. They are taking their scent back. Here is a hilarious psychological quirk about cats that triggers the Zoomies. They get profoundly embarrassed. Yes, cats have egos, and they are incredibly fragile. Imagine your cat is walking along the back of the sofa, looking incredibly majestic and graceful. Suddenly, they misjudge a step and clumsily tumble onto the cushions. It is a totally undignified moment. Instead of playing it cool, a cat will often immediately burst into a frantic run, sprinting out of the room as fast as possible. In zoopsychology, this is known as a displacement behavior. When an animal experiences a sudden conflict of emotion, like surprise, frustration, or a blow to their pride, they have a burst of nervous energy that they don't know what to do with. The brain essentially short-circuits. To cope with the sudden awkwardness, they channel that confusing emotional energy into a completely unrelated physical action. Running away fast is their way of saying, "I totally meant to do that. I was just getting a running start. Nothing to see here." It is the feline equivalent of tripping on the sidewalk and then pretending you were just breaking into a jog. It is absolutely priceless. If you're brave enough to have more than one cat in your household, you know that the Zoomies are highly contagious. It is never just one cat running. It is a full-blown stampede. The multi-cat Zoomie dynamic is a fascinating display of social interaction and predatory practice. Usually, there is one instigator. Cat A is feeling a little spicy, so they walk up to Cat B, deliver a swift, unprovoked smack to the head, and instantly bolt down the hallway. Cat B, deeply offended, takes off in hot pursuit. Suddenly, your house is the setting for a high-speed car chase. This is how cats engage in social play and mock hunting. They take turns being the predator and the prey. It is crucial for their mental health and helps establish and maintain the social hierarchy within the home. However, it can sound like a herd of wild wildebeests destroying your apartment. When they gallop together, they feed off each other's energy, escalating the situation until they are both panting and exhausted. It is a beautifully chaotic symphony of destruction. Just make sure you tuck your feet under the blanket, because during a multi-cat chase, your legs are considered part of the racetrack. Believe it or not, the weather outside plays a massive role in how often your indoor cat gets the midnight crazies. Even if they never set a single paw outside, they are deeply connected to the changing of the seasons. As winter approaches and the temperature drops, you might notice your cat becomes a bit of a lazy lump, seeking out heat vents and sleeping even more than usual. They are conserving energy. But when spring finally arrives, oh boy, the days get longer, the birds return to the windowsills, and the squirrels become highly active outside. This environmental shift triggers what we lovingly call spring fever in cats. The increase in daylight alters their hormone levels, signaling that it is the prime season for hunting and mating. Even spayed and neutered indoor cats feel this ancient biological pull. The sudden influx of wildlife outside the window provides endless visual stimulation. Their brains are flooded with predatory excitement, but they are trapped behind a pane of glass. This intense frustration and seasonal energy spike results in, you guessed it, massive, explosive Zoomies all over your living room. The changing seasons literally turn up the volume on their instincts. Let's get back to how you are involved in this furry chaos. We need to talk about attention. Cats are incredibly smart, and they are master manipulators. They quickly learn cause and effect. If you have been busy all day, working on your computer or doing chores, your cat might feel a little ignored. They want your attention, and they want it now. They know that if they just sit quietly, you might just keep working. But if they suddenly launch themselves across the room, knock over a glass of water, and scratch loudly at the carpet, what do? You immediately stand up, look at them, and maybe even speak to them. "Hey, stop that!" you yell. Bingo. Mission accomplished. In the feline mind, negative attention is still attention. They have successfully forced you to interact with them. You are essentially rewarding the Zoomies. They learn that acting like an absolute maniac is the fastest, most effective way to make the giant human drop everything and focus entirely on them. So, the next time they interrupt your Zoom meeting with a parkour session, remember, they are just playing you like a fiddle to get the love and attention they feel they rightfully deserve. So you are lying in bed at 3 a.m. and your cat is using your stomach as a trampoline. What should you do? More importantly, what should you absolutely not do? Human instinct tells us to discipline. We want to yell, jump out of bed, or maybe even chase them out of the bedroom. This is the biggest mistake you can make. If you get out of bed and chase them, congratulations, you have just agreed to play their game. You just became the most fun, interactive toy they have ever had. If you yell, you are just adding chaotic noise to their already overstimulated brains, which actually winds them up even more. Some people make the mistake of getting up to feed the cat, thinking they are just hungry. If you do this, you have doomed yourself forever. You have just trained your cat that running over your face at 3 a.m. dispenses food. The absolute best thing you can do when the midnight crazies strike is to completely ignore them. Do not speak, do not move, play dead. When they realize that their crazy behavior gets absolutely zero reaction from their favorite human, the game becomes boring. It takes patience and maybe earplugs, but ignoring the behavior is the only way to stop rewarding it. If you want to reclaim your nights and sleep peacefully, you have to become proactive rather than reactive. You need to hack your cat's biological rhythm. Remember the cycle we talked about? Hunt, catch, kill, eat, groom, sleep. This is the holy grail of feline satisfaction. You need to recreate this cycle every single evening before you go to bed. Get a wand toy, something that mimics a bird or a mouse. Do not just wave it in their face, make it act like prey. Make it hide behind corners, fly through the air and play dead. Engage your cat in a rigorous play session for about 15 to 20 minutes until they are literally panting and lying on their side. They have hunted and killed the toy. Immediately after this exhausting play session, give them their final meal of the day. Now they have eaten their prey. What follows naturally? They will groom themselves, and then they will fall into a deep, incredibly satisfying sleep. By controlling when they hunt and when they eat, you are forcing their internal clock to align with your sleeping schedule. You are preemptively burning off the Zoomie fuel so that you both can get a full 8 hours of uninterrupted rest. Another huge piece of the puzzle is environmental enrichment. Imagine being locked in an empty room with nothing but a bowl of cereal and a toilet for your entire life. You would go a little crazy too. Your home needs to be catified. Cats view their territory vertically, not just horizontally. If they only have the floor to run on, their zoomies will always involve your ankles. You need to provide vertical spaces, tall cat trees, wall shelves, or even just clearing off the top of a secure bookshelf. When a cat gets the zoomies, having a high place to jump to helps them expend that energy quickly and safely. You should also invest in puzzle feeders. Instead of just dumping their food in a bowl, make them work for it. Puzzle feeders stimulate their brains, forcing them to solve a problem to get their meal. This mental exhaustion is just as tiring for a cat as physical running. Leave a window blind open so they can watch cat TV, the birds and bugs outside. The more mentally engaged your cat is throughout the day while you are busy, the less likely they are to have a massive, explosive build-up of manic energy when you are finally ready to relax for the evening. At the end of the day, no matter how perfectly you feed them, play with them, and enrich their environment, cats are still going to be cats. The Zoomies are a fundamental, unavoidable part of their goofy nature. Instead of viewing it as a nuisance, try to reframe how you look at it. When your cat sprints through the living room, does a backflip off the couch, and stares at you with huge saucer eyes, it is actually a tremendous compliment. A cat will only exhibit this kind of uninhibited, vulnerable and playful behavior if they feel entirely safe and secure in their environment. If they were stressed or scared, they would hide. The fact that they are comfortable enough to act like a complete lunatic in your presence means they trust you implicitly. They own the territory, and they consider you a beloved part of their family. So the next time your furry little weirdo starts drifting around the kitchen island at max speed, don't get angry. Grab your camera, laugh at the absurdity of this tiny apex predator living in your house, and cherish the chaos. The Zoomies are just their wild, messy, and hilarious way of saying, "I love my life here." So, the mystery is finally solved. Now you know exactly what is going on inside that fluffy little head of theirs. Whether it is pent-up predator energy, the glorious relief of a bathroom break, or just a desperate plea for your attention, the Zoomies are a perfectly normal part of feline life. Yes, they might wake us up, knock over our water glasses, and cause general mayhem, but let's be honest, we wouldn't trade them for the world. Their crazy antics are exactly why we adore them so much. They keep our lives entertaining and our reflexes sharp. If this video helped you understand your little house panther better, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with a fellow cat parent who is tired of the 3 a.m. parkour. We have to stick together. And before you go, answer this. What is the funniest thing your cat has ever broken or knocked over during a Zoomie attack? Let me know below, and I'll see you in the next video.